This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Live tonight for the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. Happy to say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to LSR TV's continuing coverage of the 2019 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health Playoffs, where tonight the round of 8 marches on for the third to last race of the 2019 campaign. And as always, we're delighted that you're joining us here on your home for sim racing and the iRacing Esports Network. Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince, Randy Cheneth with you as always. And Justin, we come from quite an exciting race last Monday night. Rhett McBride, first win in a long time in this Full Throttle Cup Series, punching his ticket through, which means that these next 2 weeks will be used to determine the remaining 3 spots still open on the Championship 4 grid.
Yes, indeed. It was a crazy race at Martinsville, to say the very least, with some of the best drivers getting in major points trouble after that race. However, today is going to be very different. We're back into the mile-and-a-half circuits where these drivers are going to have to think about a couple things. Trying to fight the hot heat, try and control their hot tempers, and try and make sure they get up to the front. Because remember back in the spring here, Evan, it was a crazy race here at Texas that included a big one heading into turn 1.
We saw every single round of this postseason include at least one intermediate racetrack, and this is that one for the round of 8. Let's take a look at your Sim Racers for Mental Health playoff grid coming into this evening. So as mentioned, Rhett McBride with that win automatically moves on into the Championship 4. You can see the drivers down in the gray. I think notably here is, yes, those margins are still very thin, and yes, Texas, as you mentioned, Justin, is a little bit more of a return to form, returning to an intermediate racetrack. But Jason Jacoby, Andrew Fridage, you got Thomas George there as well, but Connor Horn, I think those drivers 5, 6, and 8, probably the 3 best and most competitive cars we've seen all season long when you want to look back all the way back to Daytona into February to this point. And those are 3 names that at the moment are on the outside looking in.
Yes, indeed. Right now, these are 3 of the best drivers, too, when you think about it, Evan, at the mile-and-a-half racetracks. Here's going to be the question, though. Which of those drivers are going to see trouble today? Because when we first came here to Texas back in the spring, it was one of the first races with this package. Now, they've had about a full 6 or 7 months to get themselves acquainted with it. A full season throughout the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series to prepare for the second to last mile-and-a-half circuit on the schedule. For all 3 of those drivers, including Thomas J. George outside that bubble, I think tonight has to be a must-win to make sure you can compete, because you never know what's going to happen once we get to ISM Raceway.
And if we assume that the likes of Jacoby and Fridage and Horn are going to be able to turn it around, there is only, as I mentioned, that one intermediate race this round. It's tonight. Next week for the round of 8 finale, we go to Phoenix. They could very well put on a good performance there. But if you want to bet on a race, I think this is one that they are confident going into. Flip side of that argument, Justin, if we expect Jacoby, Fridage, and Horn to at least fight to get themselves back into the top 4, that means that Shackelford, Stanford, and Jones are going to have to drop back a bit. So those drivers playing defensively, their advantage is only 3, 2, and 1 points down to the cut line, respectively. So you can't be giving up 4 spots at a racetrack to these guys. That's too much. They also, I think, have equally as much pressure, given the fact that they could be considered the underdogs.
Yeah, you can definitely consider that based on the overall season performance, but when you look at how they've done in the mile-and-a-half circuits and look at even at some of the practice times, they were amongst the top drivers in all of practice before tonight's race. Expect them to be towards the front as well. It could be a dogfight throughout Texas this evening.
We look forward to seeing what's going to go down in tonight's 125 laps of action, and we are set to rock and roll. Let's go trackside and take a look at tonight's LSR TV starting grid, and it is all those names that we just mentioned towards the front of the field, spearheaded by Connor Horn in the number 24 Chevrolet. He's on a pole with a 29.681. Jason Jacoby right alongside him will start from second position. Eric Stanford, 2 points to the good, starts third position tonight. Andrew Ferdinand, winner here from earlier this season, will start in fourth position. Thomas J. George rounds out your top 5.
Skylar Shackelford will start tonight in the 6th position after qualifying in the 29.7s. Behind him will be the man who broke a 5-year winless drought last week at Martinsville. It's Brett McBride starting alongside his teammate and Jonathan Goodell. Rounding the top 10 starting positions, Brian Chambliss and Daniel E. Eberhardt.
Behind Eberhardt, you'll find Kyle Kamer in the number 11 spot and Anthony Fredericks alongside in P12. Scott McClendon starts 13th this evening. David Washington still to grid up. There he is. He'll be 14th spot. And Shane Parrish will be P15.
16th, it's Caleb Weekly. Rounding out the drivers in the 29-second bracket. Rest of the drivers qualified in the 30-second bracket or did not record a time. Andrew T. Jones in 17th alongside Scott Brotherton. In 19th position, it's the last driver recorded time. It's Sean Kalis. And one driver on provisionals rounds out the top 20. It's the deepest playoff driver of the field tonight, Evan. It's Dylan C. Jones.
Only further down will you find Blake O'Connell and Todd Novosad to round out the provisionals. That's a look top to bottom at our LSR TV starting grid. And let's talk more about this Texas Motor Speedway. As alluded to, 1.5 miles in length, 125 laps of action this evening. Keeps pit strategy about on par with what we've seen on the intermediate tracks this year, but as the field paces down into turns 1 and 2, they'll find 20 degrees of banking, but 24 down at the far end in 3 and 4.
Yeah, this is an interesting racetrack here, Evan, where with the amount of banking, especially at the 24 degree, these portions of this racetrack, it becomes a 2-line circuit on the long run. You'll see cars try to fight along that white line, and that's the better way to save tires. However, some drivers might move up above the first seam and try and pedal the way up towards the middle top lines to try and get a run off the corner exits and make passes that way. There's going to be a lot of strategy involved in this race, Evan, in terms of racing lines, especially in this hot racetrack. It's going to be a wild one.
We knew that late in these playoffs, some of the best drivers in this series would be put in tough positions, and that is never more true than it is here tonight at Texas. The 4 drivers who come into this evening below the cut line occupy 4 of the top 5 spots on the grid as the pace car dives down and in. We're happy that you're with us at LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Green flag in the air. Round of 8 racing continues in the Lone Star State.
And as you can tell, as we've seen all season on these mile-and-a-half circuits, you want to start on the bottom because that's the faster way to get into the gears on the starts. You're going to see a lot of drivers even block the way to the white line down the backstretch to make sure they keep that bottom line in the first 5 to 10 laps of each of these runs.
Full throttle action through the completion of lap number 1. Connor Horn in front. The 24 leads after the first lap. Jacoby still challenging to the outside as a couple of cars behind. Tuck in line, single file. George Freitas and Stanford. You do have the 12 of Shackelford still working outside the black and pink number 12. But it is Stanford, Jacoby, side by side for second. And out for fourth behind them as well as Freitas looks low on the 9 car.
Freenach, one of the main strong drivers, as well as Eric Stanford when it came to practice and when it comes to these mile-and-a-half circuits. But you're eventually going to see the drivers that save their tires in these first 10 laps migrate their way to the front of the field. Jacoby, it looks like he just wants to build the rubber early on the top side since he's forced up there but you can see the difference in the runs. Down off the corner exit, if you're up on the top side, you carry so much more speed and momentum off the exit that can keep you back defending for positions.
But as all of this continues on, it is allowing Connor Horn to break away a little bit. This package really doesn't lend yourself to being able to get out in front. 0.6 of a second, now he doubled his advantage that last lap alone. As you can see how high Jacoby was up the hill that time. Stanford on the bottom, the 88 of Freenage tucked right in line behind him. And only this fight going on for second on the back, and that's the look off of the back bumper of Connor Horn for your race leader. You see the cars getting smaller and smaller. As they say side by side, he continues to eat this thing up. Was able to control after the first lap, and now nearly a second out in front just on lap number 5.
And you mentioned the side drafting, holding up these drivers that are side by side for second position. You got to remember this too, though. Everyone behind him at this point has very dirty air to deal with. Meaning, they're going to have to get off the throttle a little bit because of the turbulence throughout the corners, especially on the apex. The faster you are, the longer you can hold the throttle, the better you will have in terms of lap times and speed. Connor Horn is taking advantage that's still 1/10 of a second quicker a lap because of the clean air.
And he's enjoying this. He's going to continue to try to push it further and further away, but we are seeing some kinks of the armor of Jacoby on the outside because Stanford has been able to clear to take sole possession of the number 2 spot on the racetrack. And Andrew Freenage made the move around George in the number 9 car a little bit ago. With his 88 machine now up alongside Jacoby in a battle side by side for third position. Other changes, top 10, Fredericks up 5, Everhart up 2, and you want to talk about moving up, it's Jacoby again, way up the banking. He'll lose out to the 88 car.
And I think it's probably a thought process of, I've been up here for this entire race so far. He's probably cooked those tires a little bit more than he might have liked because, again, on the short run, you want to be against that white line. You will eventually see a lot of the drivers make their way to the line Jacoby's been stuck upon, but that's going to hurt him, I think, on the long run a little bit with where he's been running, despite where he's been trying to build up this rubber.
And of course, this is going to be a process that takes place well over the course of this race, and not lockstep in these opening 8, but you can already see the effects of that as now everybody getting down rated on that white line. And then they swing a little bit higher as they come up and off of turn number 4. Once Stanford was able to win out in the battle for second, and Jacoby ended up dropping 2 after starting on the outside of the front row. He settled in P4. You're still on board with him. He's not willing to give up this outside line down in 1 and 2, continuing to try to make it work as we see now Freenage even starting to eye Stanford in a battle for P2 and 3. Once Stanford got to that spot, Connor Horn's advantage stopped growing. Now it is stable at about 1.1 seconds, but he is no longer pulling away like he once was. We'll see how this affects it, because here comes the 88 down low. Freenage wants another spot, and he'll take it away in turn 1.
I think Stanford knows that Freenage is really good when it comes to these mile-and-a-half circuits, regardless of what the track package has been. Start of the season or the 2019 current package that was brought upon after Las Vegas. He is a very good driver on these type of racetracks that can take advantage, especially in terms of tire management, to pick up so much time. And I think that's why Stanford said, just take it. I don't want to hold you up. May as well try and work behind your draft and see if we can quickly pull up on Horn. Here's the disadvantage, though, Evan, when it comes to how big Horn's got a lead of. A lot of times throughout the entire season, especially what we've seen at Texas this past week across the iRacing service, if you're alone and, say, drivers like Freenage have some ground from behind, they can close 1/10 of a second a lap in the mid-run.
And I think one thing that we kind of talked about before we saw the drop of the green flag is with about 22, 23 cars at a racetrack tonight that these drivers may enjoy that little bit of extra space, and this race could go green, allowing a little bit of that strategy to come into play. It's been a couple of wild weeks, and I don't think we can be surprised by that. Martinsville and Talladega have been 2 of the last 3, and Kansas was pretty fun, sandwiched in between there. Don't get me wrong, Texas is a very fast racetrack, but I think these drivers have an idea, mainly because, as you mentioned, we've been here already this year, and that was kind of an experimental race, one of the first times out with this package, that returning here gives these drivers some peace of mind, but it still looks like it's just that 3-car up top. Everybody else who is single-filed out behind wants to stay low. That wider shot you can see. Everybody else 2x2 inside of the top 10. Jacoby lights that upper line in 1 and 2, but in 3 and 4 it hurts him, and that's why that Nani of Everhart's able to get back around him. And now Jacoby falls to the lowest he's been all night, P5, as he peeks back topside once more.
You know, there was actually a series I was calling with GSRC this past weekend on the Wednesday where we've seen this type of effect. And the reason I think most of the drivers haven't migrated their way up to the top quite yet is it's a shorter distance around the bottom line. So the thought is, if you're able to stick that line and manage the potential looseness off 3 and 4, potential tightness off 1 and 2, you're going to be faster by about half a tenth about each set of corners compared to, say, where Jacoby's been. The positives for Jacoby, though, with that line, he's trying to avoid that dirty air by keeping himself to where he can go full throttle on above that seam. It's just that difference has not worked out the way I think he's been hoping so far in this race, especially in this hot track temp, 129 degrees Fahrenheit.
We've really seen those temps get up there in recent weeks, and it doesn't look like we're going to have any overcast conditions anytime soon. Sun's going to be beaten down on this racetrack all afternoon long. Good news, all 22 cars who were slated to take the green flag have, and so far without incident. In Fort Worth, Texas, it is still Horn leading 3-9. Stanford, Everhart, and Jacoby, your top 5. And the tail end of that top 5 is where we continue to see the 3-car struggle. Not to neglect some of the other battles throughout the track, the likes of Washington doing battle, but it is much further back. You're talking 4 or 5 seconds off as the 3-car really lost a ton of speed that time at a 4 as he pushed up the hill, and that is another one in the wrong direction as George now the latest to get on by.
Yeah, Jacoby actually pushed up that entire corner. You've seen, tried to use the bottom. He shifted down there that past lap. But I think it's mainly in part he's not using that bottom as much as compared to some of the other drivers throughout the week. And that led him to just not knowing he needed to burp the throttle, keep himself down on that bottom line. He didn't burp it. He nearly pushed himself to the edge of the safety barrier off turn 4. And now the cars that are comfortable at that top line and know that you can pass when you can get to the top are now taking advantage of Jacoby's struggles on the bottom.
And now, and this is, where the 3 machine has not been, and the 5 going to go to the inside, almost overcorrected a little bit, and it was awfully close to that left rear quarter panel of Jason Jacoby's machine, but he is going to find a spot down and in. They will be 2x2, and maybe that 3-car will be a little bit sportier back in that familiar territory. You could really see that he was pushing it, trying to make the bottom work. He really hadn't been down there all night long, and I guess if what you have been doing isn't working, then just trying to mix it up a little bit, and I really thought the 5 of McBride was going to get him. He won't now. Here's the 3-car now, sweeping to the inside into turn 3. He wants to get another crack at George, and a huge run of momentum's going to get him all the way by. Does he slide up in front? No. George will fight back.
Yeah, for Jacoby to make that pass work, he needed to clear that front bumper right at the apex. George, he wasn't willing to lift, and now Jacoby, he's going to be stuck on the bottom side because we've seen how big of a run the 3 got last time down the backstretch. George, he hasn't been running there as much so far as Jacoby, just didn't hold as much speed, wanted to make sure he didn't push tight towards that wall.
Now you can see again, quarter exit, the 3-car has been pretty good here, all things considered, and George was right up against the fence that time. So much so with the run of momentum that he'll bring it pretty much back nose to nose. And now what we're seeing is exactly what we saw between first and second position early in this race now from fourth on to back. This is the battle for P5. And as Jacoby continues to scratch and claw and not willingly drop through the field here, this is having the same effect as it did earlier. They're now over 2 seconds behind Eberhardt, who's the next spot up on the scoring pylon in fourth. So we saw it happen when Connor Horde pulled away for the race lead at the start of this race, and now it's happening again. You can see Jacoby, nobody in front of him on the racetrack, over 2 seconds behind everybody else.
I believe we just had a change for the lead, Evan, because Horn, he's no longer up in front. It's Freenosh that's up in the front in the past couple laps or so after he got a run on lap 19 coming into lap 20. Horn gave him the spot. He's now taking advantage of the clean air and is pulled away by half a second as all of that shuffled out.
Yeah, the 88 machine was able to get on through that pass for the race lead. Happened back on lap number 20. He caught to the 24 and made pretty much quick work of him, and that's kind of what I expected at the start of this race. Despite the fact that we saw Horn get away, this package really doesn't give that much of a benefit, and kind of really starting to see a logjam from P6 on back after McBride looked like he was pretty much posed to get up on Jason Jacoby. It is a big stack up behind. You got Shackelford, you got George, Kamer, McClendon, and company almost 3 wide there, as that 12 of Shackelford had a bad run at a 4, slowed him down that entire front stretch.
I feel like he actually lifted to make sure he didn't force something underneath McClendon there. Wants to keep the car clean. And remember, he was one of the fastest cars in practice, especially on the longer run. This time, just couldn't get that. And now, this is the main thing, I think, why George wanted to get by Jacoby. They were losing 4/10 a lap because of all the side-by-side battling. Now, because Jacoby's broken away with some of the clean air, he's now stuck in amongst these battles with cars such as these two still hungry behind him, with tons of drivers changing up their lines. Some drivers using the middle, some of them still using that bottom, but a lot of them have migrated to the top in this group of cars.
They have, and they made you notice that now 25 laps into the run, but after about 10 to 15, they were starting to move down, so they see opportunities up in that higher line. You're taking a look at Kyle Kamer. He clears Skylar Shackelford at a battle for 9th and 10th position. So Kamer now at a race high P9, not in the clear. Shackelford, Jones. You can see Jones way up top as you look off for the back of the number 8 Chevrolet. They're going to give him some challenges here, don't get me wrong. And look at the speed difference there. As Shackelford was pushing up the hill, it was Jones with a big head of steam. He'll now go to the inside, side by side again, and made quick work that time.
And you can tell this is where some of the drivers struggling with tire wear are starting to fall back in the field. George, he looked good early. Now he's got damage on the right front. We've seen how he was struggling on the top line. He tried to go up there, and he actually hit the wall off the turn 4 this past time by. And with that, he's going to drop backwards more and more, because if you get aero damage with this car, especially if it's, say, more than 10 seconds, you're a sitting duck in terms of pace.
And of course, if you can't figure this out to this point, we've seen kind of a resurgence, if you will, of Jason Jacoby. He hasn't started passing the cars again. He's still that 2-second deficit back to now Eric Stanford into 4th. So Everhart around Stanford. They swap out 3rd and 4th. Jacoby has been able to get away from a lot of this mid-pack chaos that we have been keeping an eye on. And there is Stanford in the number 4 spot. You can see Everhart in front of him, running the lower line in 3 and 4. Well, Stanford's about halfway up to the fence. These drivers trying to find their way through. Just interesting to note, and of course you can see it at the top of your screen at all times. Race leader Andrew Ferdinand, 9 laps led his last lap time. And the car behind, that interval is going to continue to grow. He's pulling away from Horn in that clean air as we keep an eye on this big battle here. Still inside the top 10 though. These drivers putting on a show, and it is Shackelford trying to make a noise. Can't do it. Jones will be the one to the inside to attack.
Remember, he was the first car not to qualify, started in 20th position, and I think in part, you wanted to make sure he avoided an incident. Remember, first time we're here with this package, it was chaotic in turn 1 with the big one involving 510 cars. This time, very different tone of race on this very hot racetrack in Jones. There's a reason we've been talking about his strength throughout this entire season since the first Richmond race. He is very strong on the long run. He was one of the top drivers in the Road to Pro point standings for much of 2019. He's now up to the 9th position. He looked very comfortable on that bottom side compared to all the drivers around him.
And just taking a scan back through the field, even into the depths, the 20s. I mean, you still got drivers pretty close to one another, but now 31 laps into the race. The point that I mentioned, as we see still this group continue to fight. They're almost 10 seconds now behind Friedage. Is that the benefit of most of these intermediate racetrack events being about the same length as we can kind of expect what the strategy is going to be. And there have been some races that have had a monkey wrench thrown into them from yellows and whatnot, but so far not the case. And 31 laps in as the 4-car of Fredericks nearly dumped it on the front straightaway. There he is. He's slow. The 45 of Chameless and Cadell going to get by as well. I almost jinxed it by talking about how it was staying green. This race, you almost have to start thinking about now, when's your fuel number?
Yeah, the fuel number about 50 laps. And you're taking a bit of a look what happened to Fredericks. Tried to ride on the bottom side. However, I think he was expecting Shackelford to be a little bit more further up. Nearly came up into Shackelford and just nearly overcorrected, trying to make sure he kept it off the 12. Now, he's behind Jonathan Dell in 14th position at the moment. But to get back to your question, in the peak race, remember, drivers would pit as early as lap 40 because in the final 10 laps of a run with this package, you will see a ton of fall-off. It evens out for laps 10 to about 40, but from lap 40 to 50 at the mile-and-a-halfs, you lose about half a second to a full second in that span. If you pit, say, at lap 40, it opens up the strategy. I wouldn't be surprised, though, here tonight we see some drivers trying that risk or majority trying to go at lap 50.
But we'll see if these drivers want to stay on that 50 number because, of course, you talk about the different options that you have there. If you pit at 50, you're going to get to 100. You're going to have a very short stint to the end of the race. So these drivers could have cut it a little bit shy. You mentioned in that 40 range to make things a little bit more even. Of course, track position, if your car is doing good on a long run or if it's screaming for fresh rubber, all of those are different factors that these drivers consider. And when you talk about getting this late into the championship with only 8 cars left in it, some of the larger teams who have drivers who are no longer fighting for a championship and others who are, well, they can kind of use these opportunities to bounce those ideas off of one another when it comes to those options on pit strategy.
Yeah, a lot of teams have actually coordinated through that. We've seen it throughout the season where, say, Freenach is up in the front. We see usually a signal that he might be coming down is before he does, we see a lot of the Aegis cars come in. Guys like Shackelford like to communicate with their HBR cars. We also have Steel Horse Racing with a couple drivers still in the postseason that have had some strong performers, but also some strong performers outside that postseason window. But right now, Andrew Freenach in this clean air, he's the Pied Piper of this entire field in terms of pace. Still a 1/10 of a second quicker a lap in the clean air on the fresher tires, looking very comfortable on that white line.
Somebody else that we talked about last week in reference to somebody trying to make a late season to push here is Scott McClendon. And that number 51 car is on the attack once more. Did make the playoffs back in a round of 16, but was eliminated after finishing 13th when that round cut down to a 12-car field. But he has really been impressive since then. Had an opportunity to chat with him many times in the last couple of weeks with some of those good results. He started 13th. And that black and yellow entry is up to P6 and challenging Jason Jacoby. So you would have talked about somebody making a statement here at the end of the year, figuring this package out. It sounds like this will be the Cup package in use in 2020. Maybe that could bode well for Scott McClendon to make a push in the 2020 installation of this RealSimRacing Cup Series, as he's all over Jacoby, multi-time race winner, to battle for P5.
Yeah, McClendon, especially in the second half of this year, has been looking fairly strong. Was actually close to moving on in some of the postseason rounds this season. So he's got a lot of talent. We've seen it throughout the campaign. It's just about finishing the races. A lot of the times that cost him some valuable points, that could have been the difference to making or breaking in some of the rounds even, was just trying to make sure you stayed out of a potential attrition and had the track position you needed. A lot of times McClendon, he got involved in incidents that ended up losing him positions, and now he's still fighting in that 6th position. Denny Eberhardt, you can also put in that category, by the way, as you look back at Rhett McBride. Should note with Rhett McBride, we've seen a few laps ago, there's trouble in turn 1 into turn 1.
Caution flag, Thomas George involved in this one, Blake O'Connell as well. First yellow of the night, and it all started with the 6'9", I believe, of Jonathan Cadell. There it is, the LSR TV replay. He got a little bit squirrely coming out of 4, all on his own, and as he slid up into the outside wall and wrecked on his own, you'll see the onboard shot here with Cadell. Nobody near him. There's nobody really pushing air off of him either. He just gets a little bit sideways there. The car snaps, and what you didn't see on that specific angle was Thomas George in the 9 car going low to avoid him, Justin. He turned down into the 18, got back up into O'Connell, and that's really where all the damage comes from. So here will be a good view of this accident as Washington came up on the scene.
Yeah, Cadell was actually bottoming out for the entire way through turn 4 and snapped halfway to the corner. Those bumps just turned him all around, and it was good to see the 98 machine to avoid the incident. However, George is going to see the want of this. We talked about him needing a good points day. This is not going to help him. Severe damage on that number 9 Chevrolet. That drops him down on the 8 ball early on in this race. As drivers come in, they can make it on 1 stop after this caution.
It is a tough break, and your race leaders are in at lap number 42, so not a huge deviance to the strategy, and Freenage goes too deep. The 88 car's got to back it out of the pit box, reposition himself, and he will almost certainly give up the race lead. We saw McBride make a similar mistake. And who is going to be poised to take over by a country mile? It's Connor Horn. He'll go to the race lead. Stanford, I think, barely edging out the 88 car for second and third.
Yeah, now Freenage going to have to deal with a bit of dirty air. Here's the difference, though. I think he's going to be in a better position than he was at the start of this race for the restart, because Freenage, not at the best pace in short run, in my opinion, with this package the first 5 laps or so. After that point, though, with this, what we've seen throughout his entire career in this series, he's able to save the tires well, very strongly enough to, even though he looks like he's going 100%, can make it seem, just save the tires like he's going 50% to be able to blow by drivers and pull away. So at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if Freenage doesn't try and fight for the lead in the first 10 laps after this caution.
A big thing for him as well is going to restart, we assume, at inside of row 2 with, of course, Connor Horn controlling the field. Stanford to the outside. Is Freenage doesn't want to get held up in any sort of a battle for second. I know that he wasn't one of the 2 cars in that battle for the longest time, but in fact, after starting 4th, Andrew actually lost a spot off of the restart. But when you look at the big picture here, you know, Connor Horn took off. I mean, he checked out, and it looked like he was gone. I mean, 10, 15 laps into the race, he had a huge advantage. Once those cars behind had sorted themselves out, they caught him and passed him pretty easily. So I wonder if Horn as well is going to be as aggressive off of the get-go here and maybe not pull away to such an advantage, try to take care of that race car a little bit more.
I think he'll try and do that, absolutely, because I think at that point he knew what was going on behind him, wanted to get as much distance as he could, say, on drivers like Freenage. And in turn, he might have overcooked his tires a little bit to where he ended up, once Freenage got clear of Stanford, Freenage was just able to rally him back in with precision, being able to hold the car full throttle on that bottom horn. He might have been in a situation where he might have had to burp the throttle because of how much he might have pushed in the first 10 laps. So if you're Horn, I think you have to find a way to save the tires a little bit while you're up at the front. Maybe even force the drivers to race behind you, not pull away as quickly, and then at the 10-lap window, start to check out. Use something for Freenage's playbook where we've seen it before a lot of times, Evan. Freenage will make the driver in front of him burn up their equipment, then breeze on by and pull away.
Lights out on top of the pace car as Thomas George finds himself on the Chase Elliott strategy. We mentioned he was the 3rd or 4th driver, if you would, down below the cut line, along with the likes of Jacoby, Freenage, and Horn, and maybe an underdog as is to top of one of our big 3. But now he's damaged a lap down and in 21st position. So his objective for the rest of this race is to just try to stay out there, meet speed requirements, and you know, just get out of the way mainly but hope that some other drivers have issues and are forced to retire. That's the only way I see the 9 car making up any spots in the running order. First caution flag, going to fly behind us though. We're going to complete 44 laps of 125, and this thing all of a sudden turns in to a one-stop race to the end. Pace car down and in. Connor Horn once again in control as the 24 puts the right foot down. Green flag back in the air.
And there, a good jump by Horn. And here's the difference compared to a lot of the mile-and-a-halves here on the circuit. At Texas, you don't get usually as big of a run down that backstretch if you are, say, 2-3 car lengths up in front behind the leader. Freenosh, though, he wants the lead now.
He'll go to the very inside on Connor Horn, who will pinch him down on the bottom line. Watch for the 3 car up top of Dylan C. Jones. He won't find a spot quite yet. It's Freenosh low. It's the 24 of Horn in the middle, and they've got cars pushing both of them into turn 1, side by side. 3 rows deep for the race lead.
I'm surprised Horn didn't go all the way to the bottom white line to try and block that run Freenosh was coming and pushing on. And now, we've seen it with Jacoby on the first run. If you get up there too high on that top line in the short run, it hurts you. Horn, he bottomed out on that middle seam a little bit and nearly pushed himself to the fence.
It was a very close call there, but he's able to stay in the fight, and now the 88 of Freenosh. The big disadvantage he had the lap off for the restart is he had no arc into the quarter by entering so shallow into 3. Watches, he'll push the 24 up a little bit. Look how high the 88 is. He was down on the very inside when he tried this the first time, so it makes the bottom line much more plausible. Connor Horn, though, is driving the wheels off that thing. Oh, so close again to the wall. That onboard shot with Jones showed you just how little space there was between that Speedway Chevy and the safer barrier, and it is all going to be for nothing, it appears, as Freenosh, winner down low. He'll clear for the race lead.
And you can see what Andrew's trying to do here, trying to break up the potential draft into corner entry for Horn, so Horn doesn't get the draft back. And Horn is really trying to push this car. You can see it a bit with these angles, Evan. He's nearly sideways all the way through 3 and 4, trying to use that lane above the bottom.
And now it's the Donnie car of Eberhardt. Late swipe to the inside of the 24. You see that little bit of a push in the center. He didn't really have the arc needed to make this happen. So Horn will stay in front, and Dylan Jones, who at one point I thought was going to be going 3 wide for the race lead, is still stuck behind a wall of cars in front, sitting in the number 4 position. Horn looks a little bit more comfortable now. He'll come across the nose of the 90, and Horn stays in second, leaving a fight briefly behind between Shackelford and Jacoby as the battle to watch inside of your top 10.
Yeah, you can see that battle in the backdrop a little bit now with the top 5 single file. The thing is, though, I don't think it's going to stay that for too long. Eberhardt's been very strong throughout this race. Jones, he's worked his way up to the top 5 with some of the caution flags. So he's now in a spot where he's wanted to be all race, surrounded even by teammates. And the more the fight happens behind him right now, the more some of those cars in that top 5 are going to be happy, because Jacoby and Shackelford are still trying to make a show out of P number 6.
They're doing their best to keep us entertained. Look at the couple of cars peeking to the inside. Jacoby wants to go low. Eberhardt wants to go low even further up the running order. Again, trying to stake his claim at the inside of Horn. He feels like if he can get alongside the 24, he's got a real shot of making the 24 get a little bit overly aggressive. Freenosh unable to pull away. Still just a car length in front of now second place runner Eberhardt, who's able to make that inside work the second time around.
And I was going to say right before that caution flag there, we were talking a bit about Fredericks, drivers Mike McClendon, I should rather say, that Eberhardt, he's also been making a stake of one of the best non-playoff drivers throughout the 2019 postseason. We've seen him get that upset victory at Dover. He was one of the playoff drivers last season, if you remember back. And he's been one of the top drivers, too, when we've gone back to these type of circuits. Today, this is one of his best races we've seen on a mile and a half, even since the first Atlanta race.
And now we look at the top 5 right now. How about Dylan Jones? I know it's kind of flown under the radar a little bit because, All of a sudden, when we were watching the early battles up front, he kind of picked his way through the field, but Jones started in 20th position and really only aided by that one yellow flag has driven himself all the way up to 4th. Again, no shocker to see Jones not qualify and drive through the field. He comes into this race as the last driver above the cut line. Only one single point ahead of Jason Jacoby, but he's now outrunning him by 2 spots on track, despite starting 18 spots behind him on the grid.
Yeah, and again, we talked about it a little bit. Jones may have wanted to stay in the back just in case that trouble happened early on in this race, since there is that potential on the restarts here. However, it's been a very clean race outside of that one caution flag, and Jones has just been methodically cutting his way through the field, letting the drivers fight in front of him, and taking advantage of them burning up their equipment side by side to just breeze on by. He's also been doing one thing that Jacoby was trying to do a lot in these early to mid runs. Take advantage of clean air, go to the top side, go to the bottom when he needs to make a pass such as right here, and just breeze on by. He has looked very, very good in that 03 machine today.
He has now again alongside Horn. It took Eberhard a couple of cracks to make it work on that Chevy. And it is not going to happen the first time around for Jones, as Horn is able to defend quite easily. The top 2 now, though, starting to pull away a little bit with Eberhard trailing for Nidaj. This group, Horn, Jones, Jacoby, better figure out which one of them's got the speed and able to find themselves to the front of this pack before the race leaders are too far gone. Stanford, he'll enter the picture down the inside line, trying to dig up at a 3 car, not going to make it happen. The first, second are out in front now. This 4-way battle for 3rd on back, and you can really see them now trying to use up every inch of the racetrack, trying to find a line that works.
It looks like Jones really likes that run off of turn number 2 on the top side because of how much speed you can get down the backstretch and how little you have to turn the wheel compared to, say, being down there where you might have to crack the throttle on the bottom on entry to make sure you don't slam up to the safer barrier on exit. He's taking advantage of that. And right now, that run has worked out. He's got the top side, the preferred line to make this pass.
He is up at the outside line. We'll see if he's going to be able to make it stick. The 24 hasn't been down on that white line at all this run, and you can see why. Top side is king at 59, as it is once more Jones in front, this time passing Connor Horn to crack the top 3 for the first time tonight. And I know that Horn in the 4th position is still in a good spot, don't get me wrong. That would really help him out points-wise, but after he came in minus 12, really the only outlier, 12 back, he really needs, I think, a top 3 run, if not a win. This car that started on the pole has been good on for the get-go, but has started to struggle at this point in the run. Let's see if he's gotten better at it.
Yeah, you can tell Horn's trying to find the clean air once again, now moving back to the middle to top line. However, I don't think he's doing it the way that we've seen Jones just launch his way up. Jones has been not afraid to get up right next to that wall in 1 and 2, and then ramp it off from the top line down the back straightaway to get to the right rear corner panel of the car behind, or in front rather I should say, to make the move. Horn, he did it from the middle, and now he's got to run.
He's back on the inside, and just as quickly as Dylan Jones got it away, Connor Horn wants the challenge back on the inside. Not clear enough, and as expected, the 03 is going to use that top to ring back around him. What a speed difference down to this end of the racetrack, almost 5 miles an hour faster, and a caution flag for the 2nd time tonight. It's the 10 car of Caleb Weekly.
And this is going to make things interesting. We're not good on fuel yet, Evan. And the reason we have the caution, he pushed up, tried to keep it off the wall, bobbled around, hit it on the back straightaway, outside wall, and nosed it on the inside. We talked about how tight you can get for some of these cars off of turn 2 a little bit. He was wheeling it so hard that he snapped himself loose, trying to keep himself from getting tight. It causes the 2nd caution of the race.
The contact with the fence was very, very minimal, but of course it was because he was loose and that car was so out of control that when he spun down to the inside, that is a very unforgiving inside wall that comes up on you real fast. And Caleb Weekly get to take the toe to the pit lane. That just may end the night for the driver of the number 10 car. So at lap number 62, pretty much right at halfway home, cars are down to pit road, but again, still not in the fuel windows. So they'll top them off, don't get me wrong, but this decision here is to get fresh rubber.
Yeah, fresh rubber is vitally important here at this racetrack with how hot it is. I wouldn't even consider 2 tires with this weather at this point unless you want to risk getting very, very pushy. Looks like Brian Chambliss might try and get a lead lap point, but all these drivers need this rubber. Here's the concern though, Evan, if you are one of the spotters or one of the drivers with respective with where you're trying to plan this out now, you're not good for fuel by about at least 10 laps by the drop of the green flag, even if you top off. This strategy for the rest of this race is going to get very, very interesting.
Only Brian Chambliss stays out, so scoring will update accordingly once this car does decide to make a trip back down pit road. He drove through that time and was scored in the number 10 position at the start-finish line. He's now in the front, but if he's looking to lead a lap, he'll have to stay out at least one additional time. But as I mentioned, we came down pit road, 62 down, 63 to go. So let's take this opportunity as the field rounds at turn number 4 to take a look at our Ford Entertainment Group midway race break. I know it's temporary unless he wants to really stay out, but for the moment, Brian Chambliss is your race leader. The Texas Motor Speedway, he leads the top. Andrew Friedage in second. Daniel Eberhardt in the number 3 spot. Connor Horn, your pole sitter, in 4th, getting set for the first restart, in which he is not the control car this evening. Jason Jacoby sliding now down to position number 5. Eric Stanford lined up in the number 6 spot right now. Skylar Shackelford 7th. McClendon will be given P8. Kyle Kamer 9. And David Washington. Haven't talked a ton about that Ford Mustang. He rounds out your top 10.
We haven't talked much about Scott Brotherton either tonight, Evan. He's up to the 11th position, started all the way towards the back in 18th position, but has quietly cut his way through this field. Shane Parrish is in 12th position. Actually picked up a new sponsor for that front hood for tonight. You can see that logo up in the front with Sean Kalist in the Rick Motec machine, rounding up the top 13. Rhett McBride, we've seen him get some damage early on, started going backwards. He was up inside the top 10, even the top 5 at some points. Right now, it doesn't have the track position needs. Anthony Fredericks is in 15th, with Todd Novosad quietly in 16th spot. Andrew T. Jones in the colorful stance machine is in 17th. Dylan C. Jones, though, has dropped all the way back to 18. He's elected to go to the back here. Might be trying to get some fuel here, and will indeed do so once again because to make sure he has it packed full. Thomas J. George got some damage fixed. He's in 19th position. Round at the top 20 is Caleb Weekly. The rest of the drivers, Evan, are off the track. Blake O'Connell, Jonathan Caddell, your 2 DNFs.
And just take all the names that we mentioned on the lead lap and bump them up 1 because we did see Chambliss come down to pit road. So as we expected, Friedage will go back to control, but that's been looked top to bottom at your FEG midway race break. Ford Entertainment Group has been providing the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything that you need preloaded. You can get on track as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the over 600 iRacers already racing on a Ford Entertainment Group PC. Computers to fit every budget from $540 and up. Go to FEGPC.net and mention code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. Another update on Dylan C. Jones. I believe Jones got a speeding penalty on pit road. He had to drop to the back after he came out in a top 5 position. The pace car is going to go down and in this time. Let's see what Friedage can do from the front row. First time this evening, he'll come to a green flag with nothing but clean air in front of him. 65 down at Texas.
And now this is going to be interesting to see what he can do on these restarts. We've seen drivers not go to the bottom to the white line as expected so far. They've gone a lane up. It looks like Horn and the rest of the drivers tried that line, but no Friedage. He's going to be all over this racetrack trying to break up the draft of everybody else behind so we can keep that clean air early.
Taking a look at the 90 car on the outside, Everhart trying to keep it even with Stanford. Stanford, another name, who despite starting in third has been around these battles, but hasn't been able to crack really a battle for the race lead yet this evening. He wants to try to make the bottom work. Won't happen. Everhart should carry the speed off at 2 here. Yes, he will. He'll take over third. Tucking line behind Horn and Freenage. The 24 looks high, then comes right back down to the bottom.
And he's trying to diamond that down just a little bit too loose on the throttle. He's seen Everhart try and dive that bottom. He tried to cut it down quickly while trying to diamond it to keep that bottom line and nearly spun himself out. But this is still a high-pressure situation for him on the point. He's going to have to fight for everyone he's got as Everhart's getting a run down the back.
He's got a good look to the inside, but the 24 will hold his ground. That'll force the 90 up top. Now he'll slide right on the deck lid, trying to get underneath Connor Horn, who is vehemently fighting to keep that positioning for himself. They'll hook up, old school bump draft, push down to turn 1 at 183 miles an hour. Both of them trying to not allow Freenage to get away, who all things considered, and despite how sporty that 24 looked off in the restart, he went unchallenged. As again, they'll dive into 3 single file. Behind them, it's Jacoby to the inside of Stanford for 4th and 5th.
Here's the difference, though, from the start of the race when Horn got that gigantic advantage compared to these past 2 restarts. They were side by side for 5, 6, 7 laps and side drafting one another. This time, the top drivers are single files, so the leader can't get away as easily. Now everyone else behind, with that big spoiler and the amount of downforce cut in that spoiler cutting a hole in the air, will allow guys like Horn to get a run right now.
And Horn's got a peek down at the bottom of the racetrack. This is where he's wanted to be on this run. He's able to get on Freenage, and this time at a completion of lap 70, he'll have the advantage by half a car length. Can he get all the way by now? 3/4 of the way clear into turn 1. Freenage tries to pinch down, but it'll be to no avail. And Connor Horn back to the race lead. One of the best 5-10 lap sequences off of a restart we have seen from him this evening. Everhart fills the hole left by him at the bottom, so it's the 90 car to the inside of the 88 for second, as Jacoby watches on from 4th, having able to make that pass on a 19 to Stanford.
And Stanford has been quietly staying inside this top 10 all race, but he knows his battles, knows when he's struggling for grip. May as well not fight too hard, may as well try and save. But Jacoby, he's been willing to try and attack if he's got a shot. He's got a shot for 3rd.
Trying to make a play for the spot, but down on the inside of the 88, and just like that, Freenage, who pretty untouchable off of the restart there, falls back into the number 4 position. Far from over, he'll go to the inside of Jacoby, side by side behind as well as Scott McClendon enters the top 6. He'll ring it around the outside line. That 3 machine of Jacoby better topside to keep Freenage at bay for yet another lap. And not seeing your race leaders, top 2 or whatever, even just a single lead car like we saw, on the first green flag of the night this evening, pull away like we did earlier. And it looks like most cars being a little bit more aggressive actually this time around to not let people get separation.
Yeah, they know track position is important. No, they still have to very likely pit one more time for the fuel, especially with 61 to go when we got the green flag. These drivers, they don't want to allow any sort of separation, potential risk. The only driver I think we're even saving their equipment at the moment again is a driver you expect in Andrew Freenage, because if you look at some of the corner splits, right now he's about 5 miles an hour slower in the corners compared to his competitors, trying to let the tires cool off. Well, everyone else, they're still going full throttle. Andrew, he's been going about half throttle compared to some of the drivers that you see on screen. That could pay dividends towards the later parts of this run to right about where we expect these drivers to pit.
And you talk about that pit strategy again. The big picture here is this restart, most recent one, it came outside of the fuel windows. So expecting everybody to still have to make a trip down to pit road before this race is done. We have not seen green flag pit stops this evening, so the trends would suggest a yellow is still out there somewhere. but you never know. And of course, that last time by with 50 laps to go, I think you still have a lot of time to make up your mind on when and where you're going to make that decision to finally come down pit road. A lot of single file top 10 now as things finally start to sort themselves out. It's still just the two blue Fords going at it, and Jacoby again topside, forcing the 88 of Freenage to work the bottom. And of course, when you're trying to make that inside line stick, your car's going to push a lot worse, I guess I should say, on corner exit. You can see how easy it comes to Jacoby to rocket off the turn and use that banking to his advantage. He's kind of making Freenage drive the car hard, something that Freenage is very well known for not really doing. He's very well at conserving that equipment. So I wonder if that's why the 3 wants to leave the inside open, almost coax him into overdriving that race car a little bit.
I think a little bit has to come into that factor, yes, knowing that Andrew might want this 3rd position. I want to make sure he might burn up that right front tire a little bit, even try and get him off the gas on corner exit. But again, we've seen Jacoby run that line a lot. In fact, about 10, 20 laps earlier than a lot of drivers we expect to be up there. In part because you're able to carry much more speed up there. You're able to keep him more longer full throttle up on the top line compared to, say, running the bottom, where if you do that, you're going up towards the outside fence. Jacoby, I think, is just playing that type of game where he wants to make sure he keeps speed while maintaining clean air so he can get runs like here down the back straightaway to keep up with this 1st and 2nd place cars.
That shot there, you can see how they all get right up against the fence. Everybody trying to draft off of one another down the straightaway, but it looks a lot more discombobulated in the turns, because that's where drivers have a disagreement on opinion on where the best place at a racetrack to go to is. And now maybe a battle for the race lead as it's Eberhard down to the inside. Made that big sweeping arc as the 24 kept it on the outside. And as expected, topside is better off of the corner. But Eberhard almost got all the way clear on the bottom. It's not something you really think about when you're doing a race at an intermediate track at 170 miles an hour. But if you could clear down on the bottom and pull up in front, that could be a way to make a pass for the race lead.
It definitely is a way to make a pass for the race lead. We've discussed it a few times on the D-shaped overs, especially if you get clear by halfway through the corner, expect a potential slide drop to try and make sure you get the position. If you can force your competitor to thrust you back up and get them to the bottom side, by the corner entry, the next set of corners, you will have the advantage to get the position. Eberhard, though, he just can't get the run quite yet to make that pass on the bottom side work. He might have to try and go up to the top side, then cross his way to the bottom and try and build that speed up to make the move.
And with the 3-car watching on, if Eberhard and Horn really start to get after one another, again, it's one of these secondary cars behind that could stand to reap the benefits as everybody continues to close in deeper and deeper into the run here at Texas Motor Speedway. Your top 4 have broken away from the field as Jacoby, Freenage still fighting over 3rd and 4th. I figured that this constant side-by-side dueling would actually hurt them and lead to a Horn and Eberhard breakaway, but those cars have been able to stay in it. Freenage almost clear that time. 3-car comes back on exit, but surprisingly, it is a top 4 stretch ahead of now Scott McClendon, who's now race high P5 in a battle with Stanford.
You can take a look at that. McClendon using that top line to his advantage, but look who's trying to follow in that draft. Skylar Shackelford. He knows the top line's coming into effect now about this 20-lap portion of the run. He can make this work. All he needs to, again, to get a chance to make a pass on Stanford, just get to his outside off the corner exit. That time, though, tried to take it a bit too low, I think, off the corner exit to try and ramp it down. That doesn't quite work too well unless you're the best of the best. By the way, 3rd position has changed hands, Evan. Andrew was able to clear by Jacoby on the bottom side.
Finally able to do it. It happened just that time as they came at a turn 4, and he's been close, but hasn't been able to clear the 3 on many attempts, and he finally has been able to do so, and this will be the first time that he's really all the way in front, because every other time Jacoby drove back to the top side. This time he'll drive into his bumper and let him know, all right, you got me this time, but I'm not going away. So the driver who wins in the long run there is Farinaj, who gets back to third. And we'll see if he could out-challenge to get back up front as Connor Horn starting to enjoy it out front. I thought really on this restart, because on the drop of the initial green flag and then the one and only restart prior to this one, Justin, we saw Horn be the control car. He struggled on that second, but on the first one he got onto the big advantage in that struggle that I thought the 24 would really have a hard time in the dirty air off of this restart. But in fact, I think this has been his most impressive run on a restart tonight. He's up to 39 laps led, but this is the point in the run where he needs more. And it's Horn now to the inside, challenging for the race lead at lap 87.
Eberhard rather on that inside. I think Horn's just probably thinking, you know what, you want to run the bottom side? Take it. And I think he also knows Eberhard's a little bit faster. I wouldn't be surprised as we see here them fight. But remember, we're inside the fuel window. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these drivers duck down in 10 laps. And Horn knows this. He's going to try and fight as hard as he can, because if he can hold him up and make sure Eberhard struggles a bit for time before he tries to duck it down, he might have the advantage a little bit. It's going to be interesting once we get into these next few laps or so as they stay side by side.
Does this help Farinaj, who's just now solely in possession of third place? Is he going to be able to take advantage of the side-by-side action up front and close in? The answer at the moment appears to be no, not having the pace of the cars first and second. Horn's going even further up the racetrack now. Eberhard not able to clear him in the center, and here on exit is where that outside pays its due dividends with the last couple of passes. Top 3, top 5. With it made on the bottom, Horn clears him, goes right back down to protect. So that tells me that Connor Horn feels threatened by the 90. We've seen a couple of cars get challenged to the inside and not really care. They've stayed the top line, and then they've just let those cars try to go on the bottom, and they were confident in the run they get off of the quarter. But with the 24 now coming away, taking the line off of the 90 car, giving him some dirty air there, trying to take some downforce off the nose of the car in P2. Tells me Connor Horn feels like he's got a fight on his hands.
He definitely has a fight on his hands right now, because outside of Farinaj, in my honest opinion, Eberhard has been the fastest car in this race. So if you're Horn, you're thinking, you know he passed you on the last run. You know Eberhard, he's not even moved his way up to the top sides. I'm surprised he hasn't tried that yet. He's going to try and make you work and try and make the move on the bottom side. So why not make it as hard as you can? Make him try and work. And you know that the top side, if you're forced up to it, you can pinch your way down. It can work. Eberhard trying to go up high. Horn knew it.
Yeah, he followed him. It's almost mirror driving there into the corner. Wasn't the smoothest of quarter entries for the 24, but he was just watching what the 90 car was doing to take that line away. But all of this battle he now has brought Farinaj into the picture as Eberhard finally gets real estate on the inside once more. Good corner exit this time, and a race down to turn 1 may present Eberhard the best chance he's had to go to the race lead so far tonight. He's got Farinaj down low with him, but neither got enough spunk, and it's the 24 again topside with just millimeters to spare to the wall, who stays in front for at least another half a lap.
Yeah, I think Horn, he's gotten better as this race has progressed on that higher line. Remember at the start of this race, in the first half of this event, he was actually finding ways to bottom his car out, like on the suspension where some of the housing is underneath where the engine's at, and that kept him getting out of shape and where he couldn't get the best of lines. I think he's adjusted to that now. He's been able to race much more better on that top line, and it's now paying dividends to be able to hold on to now a 3-car scrap for the lead.
In fourth place is now Scott McClendon, Dylan Jones back to P5. So that's the latest in that group of race cars as things continue to adjust throughout the field. About 30 laps, though, since we saw these cars, last top off and get ready to try to make a run to the end of this race. The restart came at lap number 66, so just shy of that. But this is pretty much the midway point in this run to the end of the race. So do you cut it in half and pit soon? Or these drivers may be wary of a yellow, gonna run this thing to closer to 15 to go before they come in?
In my honest opinion, the way this race has progressed, the chances of a caution are still fairly low, so I see a majority of the drivers trying to split the run right about here in these next couple laps or so. But I wouldn't be surprised to see guys like Jacoby or other drivers who need a victory and know they will need a victory depending on their performances at Phoenix and their comfortability there, that they might try and stretch it. We've seen Jacoby do that multiple times throughout this entire postseason to try and break for a caution for track position. We've seen it from drivers like Horn to try something different to battle against Freenosh, especially with some of the road courses with pit strategy. Wouldn't be surprised to see it here. I believe we've just seen Washington duck down this time.
So with Washington coming down to the pit lane, maybe the floodgates will open. What is open is the inside on the 90 of Eberhardt. So wasn't able to make do with the 24 car. And Freenosh now maybe getting impatient and sitting back in third, took his own swipe at the number 2 position and had the same struggles that the 90s had. Have been trying to work at the inside of the 24s. At the bottom, just is not good enough on corner exit. And that car topside, going to get that big run off. You really don't have a whole lot cooking. Look, Eberhardt was 2 car lengths off into the corner. He gets almost to the bumper in the center, but then off, it's going to be Horn pulling it to 2.5, maybe even 3, down into turn 3. So the 24 cars got this thing figured out. It may come down to a strategy. Who comes down pit road first? That could be a big play. Fastest lap of the race for Connor Horn, your current race leader, came at a 29.7 very early in this one. He ran a 31.8 last time. You're talking about 2 seconds of fall off. A pit stop going to be big and leapfrogging a couple of cars around you if you're in a pack like your top 3 are.
I was about to get actually to that, Evan. That's the thought process these drivers have been thinking about as well. If I go in first, I'm going to have the oldest tires in this battle, and that could be a concern because while you're going to pick up time, you're going to eventually fall back. Eberhardt, though, having a big slide.
And the 90 car of Eberhardt lost a lot there as he drops down to the pit lane, and probably could have been a lot cleaner than that as he was very late onto the apron. Missed the, he did make the commitment code, and I think he's going to be all right, but that was not pretty. And he will get the fresh tires sooner, so we'll see if these cars up front now are going to commit to pit road to react to that. Connor Horn, running the bottom, is going to respond. He pits, Freenosh doesn't, and the 88 gets to the race lead.
Here's the thing, though. There were 2 sets of cones. A yellow cone for the start of the pit speed, and that orange cone, he is going to miss that by a mile as he slides through that UPS logo. Eberhardt,
he's serving the penalty now.
Yeah, Eberhardt's going to lose a lot of potential time. He is now coming out as Horn is coming in.
With the 90 car out, that pretty much wipes that away. Connor Horn was clean on his entry and doesn't make a mistake in the box. You can see the car getting serviced now. Right sides, left sides, he is good to go. Freenosh does not react to that, though. We saw Horn reacting to Eberhardt come in the lap immediately following. Freenosh doesn't buy it. He'll stay out now inside of the final 25 laps at Texas to take sole control of the race lead, but in theory is losing time with each passing lap now.
Here's the thought, though, with him maybe is he's good on the long run. He might be thinking if he's got the fresher tires, he might find a way to reel them back in. He's still got a few laps to do it. His teammate Dylan C. Jones has just ducked in, though. A couple of his other teammates have already made their way to pit lane. He is right now, I believe, the last car amongst his Aegis teammates to not find their way to pit lane quite yet.
We only have 8 cars at the moment scored on the lead lap back to George. So, the lead car out of this cycle would be Connor Horn in the number 24 machine. Very evidently able to get around Daniel Eberhardt, who loses some in the range of 5+ positions. And there's the 88 car in. So Freenosh is not going to push it way deep in the fuel run, just a little bit longer. It'll be interesting to see how quickly he's able to blend back out onto the racetrack, because pit road entry looked pretty good as he was able to drive it in pretty much hard right to that commitment cone.
He's going to sacrifice a couple sections of the track right now, but here's the main thing. The tire difference is going to be about 3 or 4 laps at least compared to a lot of drivers such as the Speedway Chevrolet. And that's going to be about a couple tenths of a second difference per lap to reel him and everybody else a part of that battle back in. Horn in a great position with the clean air, but Andrew, there's a chance he can reel him back in fairly quickly.
And it is an interesting decision for the 88 car now just blending back up onto the racetrack into Connor Horn. I mean, a huge advantage. Almost the entirety of turns 3 and 4 is what the upper hand is in favor of the 24 car. I'm liking the call by Horn right now. 20 laps is a good amount of time, but it's not like we're talking about the difference between a 2-stop strategy and a 1-stop strategy. He's not going to be that much faster, I wouldn't think.
Not too much faster, but again, you have to think about how much fall off we've seen throughout this entire race. Keep an eye on the times that come across the stripe, for example. He's in a great position. In net would be about, he lost a couple positions, yes, to some of the undercuts, such as Kamer, but right now his times will be about a couple tenths off. Right now, Horn's in the 30-second range. Andrew Freenach this time by the stripe as his official time comes in, for example. It's going to be a 29.958 with a little bit of the dirty air, so it's going to be difficult, I think, yes, Evan. But it is doable.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, and of course, as we mentioned, if this were to stay green to the end, it would be the longest green flag run of the night. We hadn't seen green flag pit stops this evening before now. There's always a chance that happens. I just don't see it right now. Connor Horn even trailing Jason Jacoby on the racetrack because the number 3 machine currently running in P5, still waiting on the top 5. Chambliss, McBride, Jones, Novosad, and Jacoby to come down to the pit lane and get their service taken care of and get down to the very end of this thing. So those are the drivers who are kind of banking on the gamble for a yellow.
Yeah, more so McBride and Jacoby. I'm not surprised about Jacoby and seeing this type of a gamble. We've seen it multiple times from him before. But Rhett McBride, I want to touch upon him in that 5 car, for example. He's got about a 13-second cushion. He had to get some repairs, sacrificed a lot of track position. He's already locked himself into the postseason, into the Final Four for Homestead. But if he can get a win like this, 2 in a row after a 5-year drought, that would be a big morale boost. For Jacoby, if this doesn't work out for him this time, Evan, he's going to be a lot of points down heading to Phoenix by at least another 5 or 10 down potentially.
And of course, these are the gambles that drivers have to take for an Andrew T. Jones and these other drivers. It's kind of just to go out there and see what you could make out of it. But certainly, when you talk about the drivers that are in the playoffs, Rhett McBride is A-okay, but if it doesn't play out for anybody else at a point, you're talking about almost an insurmountable number. And it's funny because Connor Horn came into this race 12 points below the cut line. And when he was running in 4th position, Justin, I was thinking to myself, I don't know if that's going to be enough. He's only 12 points back, but that's because the other 6 cars, excluding, of course, McBride, the 7th, who'd already advanced, the other 6 cars above him in the points, they were separated by only 9. So 12 to the cut line was a big bump for him. This could be huge for the 24, because, of course, the playoff driver winning this race punches their ticket to the championship 4. We already know that McBride will be there. Do we add a second name to that list this evening? We'll find out in 15 laps.
And here's the concern if you are in that 24 pit box at the moment. Andrew, in the past couple laps, I talked about the difference on the fresh tires, especially on the long run. Andrew's found a way to pick up 4/10 of a lap now. In the past couple laps, we got trouble in turn 3. Stanford and McClendon making contact. They kept it straight.
McClendon's on the apron, so he's still trying to regain control of the 51 machine, but we will stay green. He got into Stanford at the quarter, and that was almost a big wreck. You'll take a look at the replay right here. McClendon looking low, just a really late dive, got into Stanford, and that was almost the yellow that your top couple of cars were banking on.
Yeah, that could have really shooken up the running order a little bit here, but McClendon knew he was a little bit faster than Stanford, and Stanford just, I think, wasn't expecting that late move with just a little, maybe even McClendon being a little quarter lane lower. Good on them, though, to keep the car straight, but here's again the thought process. Andrew is still charging, and fairly quickly. It's now a 0.3 of a second difference last time by. He still has to close up under 5 seconds, though, on the racetrack.
And a caution flag at lap 112 is going to slow us down, and it is Eric Stanford. So big championship implications. Stanford had just avoided a wreck a couple laps prior, and look at the replay here at turn number 2. It's contact with the 20 car of Brotherton. Brotherton, I think, saw Shackelford trying to go to the outside, so he did not go all the way up the bank. He adjusted, and next thing you know, the 19's driving into the 20, expecting there to be an extra 10 feet there.
Exactly. He expected to be about another half a lane up. But I think Brotherton was trying to give space to Shackelford, knowing he was running the top side and was a bit faster using the banking. So Stanford, not knowing what was happening above him there, just ends up making that contact with the 20 machine. And this is a big one because now everyone can get back on the same tire strategy. Chambliss and Andrew T. Jones and Rhett McBride all were able to stay up at the front because of this caution.
It is big for those drivers, as this may just pay off for them as we're all down to the pit lane. So Chambliss, first car into the box. He was able to get in cleanly. Fuel, obviously, to get to the end. You don't need a Packer full, though, but it is going to be a 4-tire decision for Brian Chambliss. Let's watch him try to win the race off the pit road. Almost contact with the 19 of Stanford on the way out, but the 45 stays in front. It's Chambliss, Horn, McBride, Friedage, and Jones, your top 5.
Yeah, and the reason Jones lost the spots, he overran his pit box and lost about half a second. But this is huge for that 45 machine. He was so close to being in this round of 8. He was a strong performer throughout that entire round, especially at Kansas. I think he would be over the moon if he can find his way to victory lane tonight. But now, if you're drivers like Horn, if you're Freenausch, if you're Dylan C. Jones, or Skylar Shackelford, the highest running playoff drivers needing victories to lock themselves in, you're thinking, oh boy, this is going to get crazy with under 10 laps to go when we get back to green.
And if I'm Connor Horn, I'm nervous. Again, I said a top 3 would be good, but I don't even know if a top 3 would get above the cut line headed into this round of 8 finale next week at ISM Raceway in Avondale, Arizona. So he thought he had this. I think he made the better call on the green flag pit stop, and now, well, he's just another driver in the middle of what's going to be a crazy fight to the end. Again, McBride is in, so he's good. But Friedage, you've got Jones as well. Shackelford, a driver who has just made the cut line, finished in the number 8 position. And around to 12 to make it to this point, came in at a +3. You know, +3 is not a lot, and a P7's not bad either, but you know, the car that he was +3 to is, you know, drivers that are in front of him on the racetrack. So there is a lot going on now in the points with Chambliss as your leader. If any one of those playoff drivers goes on to get the win, again, that changes it even more.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be really shooken up here. And right now, though, I think if you're any of the drivers that are not in the playoffs, you have the chance to play spoiler. And this is a big opportunity for some of the drivers. Yes, you have team members that are in the postseason up towards the front, but Chambliss, wouldn't be surprised if he tries to fight Horn even for this race victory, knowing there's going to be under 10 laps to go, about 9 laps or so to go when we restart. Expect him to defend like crazy. Wouldn't be surprised if Jones tries to find a way to somehow set it in. This is the highest he's been in a long while in a nightmare 2019 campaign for that 64 machine. This would be huge for him. This is going to be absolutely hectic right now, Evan, with so many drivers needing some strong runs and strong victories. I don't know what we're about to see here, but it's going to be carnage.
And we'll see if they can get through this 9-lap run to the end, or if you mentioned the carnage, if we see some of that, if it is indeed on the horizon, who it affects, and how many restarts may still be due up from the Great American Speedway. When the pace car dives down and in, it'll be Brian Chambliss, who stayed out, had just barely a couple of laps on the field left, catches the yellow, And now he's got just as good an opportunity to fight for the race win as anybody else. He's joined by Connor Horn, Rhett McBride, Andrew Friedage, and Andrew T. Jones inside of your top 5. Pace car added in. Let's see what the 45 wants to do with it. It's his field on the inside. Green flag in the air, 9 to go at Texas.
And this is the benefit, Evan, of having a teammate. You can count down with the driver up to your outside with the team communications. Now it's going to be the question, does Chambers try and defend Horn, or does he let him have the spot knowing the implications? Horn actually bumps him off to the bottom.
They were physical in 2 behind them. Friedage going to go to the inside of Rhett McBride, but it is a side-by-side fight for the race lead, and Connor Horn makes it stick in 3 and 4. He'll now go back to the race lead, dropping Chambliss back to 2nd. Friedage knows it for the McBride as he'll take away 3rd.
And now if you're Horn, you run away knowing you got the 45 behind you as a potential cushion. And you're hoping this race stays green if you're that 24 machine, because Andrew, if you get a caution, would be on the bottom behind the Speedway Chevrolet, but it's getting very busy for 4th on back.
That's where the concern is. These cars side by side, jockeying inside, outside is where an incident's going to come from if we see one. But they're all stuck side by side. Jones McBride fighting for 4th and 5th position. Shackelford, the other Jones in there as well, and the 5 gets sideways. McBride's going to go way down the banking. He'll lose 4 spots on the back straightaway alone, trying to make the middle line work. Now 3 wide with Kamer looking middle.
And that got very tight. Kamer had to lift off the gas to make sure he didn't cause the big one. Good awareness there of knowing that the 5 was pushing up, and good sportsmanship and racecraft. Keeping his car clean and keeping this race green.
Still side by side, battling behind for the top 7 positions. Now it is Dylan Jones and Andrew T. Jones for 4th and 5th, so a lot going on, but none of which is a battle for the race lead. That will see 5 laps to go this time by, still with Connor Horn, looking for a ticket to the championship 4, ahead of Chambliss, ahead of Friedage. That last time by, though, both the cars behind to close the gap a little bit as you look off of the back of your race leader.
And I think Horn's in a great position because one of the main things we've seen all night is the consistency with the 88 on those long runs has been he doesn't do as best as compared to the 24 machine on the short run in the first 10 laps. It takes him until about lap 12 to 15 to start picking up positions and start gaining pace. Right now, the numbers, based on when we restarted, are in Horn's favor, with the clean air still coming to 3.5 laps to go.
And still, again, you have to get all the way to the white flag for this race to be official, with an opportunity at a green-white checker at RSR overtime if so necessary. You're watching Shackelford and Andrew T. Jones battle for 5th and 6th position. Both of them able to get around McClendon in the last few laps and go side by side. Losing touch, though, with Horn, who that last time was the fastest car of your top 5. He is looking good out in front of the field this time by. It'll be 2 laps to go for the Speedway Chevy of Connor Horn.
And that clean air, we've seen it at the start of the race. He was able to do the same thing early on when there was a fight behind him, including for cars such as this. He took off, and that cushion led him keeping that advantage for the race lead for the first 20 laps or so of this Texas 125. Now if you're Connor, you're hoping you get to the start and finish line and this race stays clean, and battles such as what we just seen stay clean as well.
They're leaning on each other in some of those battles. Washington and McClendon making contact, but it's Horn gets the white flag, and this race is going to be official. Those are the 2 cars that were leaning on each other. Thought they might have wrecked, and they're still going to go out at Washington again now. Sideways, he'll hang on, but in front of all the chaos is Connor Horn, who came into tonight 8th in the championship of the 8 cars left, and instead he'll fight for the Full Throttle Cup at Homestead in 2 weeks' time. Connor Horn, winner at Texas Motor Speedway.
And the strategy worked out to his strengths with this mile-and-a-half drafting package. A short run to end off the race with him getting the clean air. Every time it seemed he got it in terms of clean air, he was strong in the first 10 to 15 laps of a run. This final restart played into his hands, and as soon as he got that race lead, he was able to take off and away. And a big second place, too, for Andrew Freenosh with that pass on Chambliss, getting himself an extra point.
He did get that pass. You saw the tail end of it on the very last lap as he was driving into the inside, so he's able to get around Chambliss. But the one celebrating is Connor Horn, who goes to victory lane for the 5th time in this 2019 season. And the first thing we talked about when we came on the air tonight was that our big three, if you will, were below the cut line. Well, one of them, at least, is going to be going on, and it is Connor Horn, who is able to move on through, tying Jason Jacoby now for the second most wins this season.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how he goes in Homestead, because Homestead, with even this package, is still one of the best racing tracks in all of iRacing in terms of mile-and-a-half racetracks. It's going to be a heck of a fight. Horn punching his ticket to the championship tonight. I think he's going to be a very strong competitor for this year's Championship Cup.
We'll take a look at how the point situation is out of tonight and chat with your top finishers in just a moment as we step aside from Texas. You've been watching LSR TV's coverage of the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health Playoffs. Post-race action coming up next on the iRacing Esports Network. Headed back live at the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. We're round number 31 of the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health, has fallen into our rear view mirror, and we get ever so closer to fighting for the Full Throttle Cup. Happy that you're still with us at LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince, and Randy Chennett with you this evening. We'll go trackside, talk with your top finishers, chat points in just a moment. First, let's take a look at tonight's Ford Entertainment Group full race results. Connor Horn will go to victory lane this evening to punch his ticket to the Championship 4. He edges out Andrew Freenosh with a 9-lap to go restart, who comes home second. Brian Chambliss nearly won this one on the gamble to stay out, but it's good enough for third. Dylan C. Jones is fourth. and Skylar Shackelford will round out your top 5. Andrew T. Jones is P16. Scott McClendon comes home in 7th. Shane Parrish is 8th. David Washington 9. And Anthony Fredericks, the 5th driver, to finish inside of your top 10 as he comes home P10 that started this race lower than 12th in a running order.
Jason Jacoby finished all the way back in 11th position tonight. Not the finish he wanted to this race. Remember, he was one of the drivers trying to stretch it in terms of strategy. Brett McBride dropped all the way back to 12th with the checker flag, with Kyle Kamer coming away in 13th. Sean Kalis finishing 14th, with Todd Nolasad rounding out the top 15. Rest of the drivers on the lead lap included Thomas J. George and Eric Stanford. Remember, Stanford involved in that last caution of this race. Rest of the drivers finishing in the garage area on multiple laps down. Scott Brotherton 18th. Danny Lee Eberhard, he finished the race in 19th. Parking the car with 20 laps to go. Caleb Weekly in 20th. Michael Connell and John Goodell had early ends to their competitive races.
Yeah, not tonight that how they wanted to wrap it up with O'Connell and Cadell putting the bookmark on this one. That's a look top to bottom at tonight's Sport Entertainment Group full race results. FEGPC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join these 600 plus iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group computer. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. Go to www.fegpc.net and mention code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. Let's head down to No Limits Texas Victory Lane, where we are stood by with the latest driver to make the championship for Connor Horn, your winner in the Texas 125. Connor, congrats.
Oh my God, thank you. I can't believe I won that. That was so insane. I knew I had to win one of the next 2 weeks. I didn't think I could point myself in. That long run with Andrew and Daniel, that was everything I had. I was just not letting them pass at all costs. And I got lucky. Daniel sped coming to his pit stop. I think I timed my pit stop pretty well. I was able to get out ahead of Andrew, and the tires weren't that uneven, and I think they would have caught me by the end, and that would have been a good battle. I really did not want that yellow to come out at all. I was devastated when it came out, but I got a good pit stop, so I jumped 2 of the guys who were trying to make fuel stretch that whole long run, and I got a good restart. Brian didn't block hard enough. I was kind of shocked by that, and I got by. Andrew couldn't get by Brian in time. Dylan, I don't know if he had a bad pit stop or not, but he wasn't there, and somewhat fortunate win, but I really don't care. I'm on the homestead. That's all that matters to me.
And that is the end objective, and you came into this evening to minus 12, which with 2 races to go isn't that bad, but when you consider the likes of the guys in front of you as well in the points that needed good nights, Ferdinand and Jacoby, it was going to be a tall order to go for the race win. Was that the end objective in this, was to maybe go for the win as opposed to trying to points it through, and was that, what was the decision behind making the pit stop, which without that yellow looked like it was going to do for you? Or did you still feel confident enough that with a fast enough race car, a top 3 still would have been good enough with Phoenix next week?
It was pretty much must-win mentality. I mean, even when you're only a couple points down, you kind of got to be in that must-win mentality. I mean, I really didn't expect anyone to have big accidents. The only reason it happened at Martinsville, everyone getting involved in wrecks, is because it's just Martinsville. Texas is a much cleaner track, as it showed. Everyone in the chase who needed good nights had good nights, except for, I think, Jacoby. But yeah, I was just thinking must win the whole time. 12 points doesn't seem like a lot in a league like this, where the guys who are still in the chase are the guys to beat in the top 5. It really means a lot to win. It means a lot more to win here than it does in other series. So and especially with Rat winning Martinsville, throwing a big wrench into things, which means it was either going to be me, Andrew, Jacoby, Dylan Jones. One of us were going to be out, and now it's pretty much official that one of us is in, luckily, and luckily I'm the one safe, and luckily those guys still have to be stressed out at Phoenix, and I just gotta practice for Homestead. I'm relieved beyond my belief.
And of course, that drama is going to continue for everybody but you and Rhett into next week, because Phoenix will be the official decider in who will join you in the championship for you and Rhett, advancing unofficial points, showing that Skylar Shackelford is third in the points, 1 point above Andrew Friedage, who is tied with Dylan Jones, but I believe holds the tiebreaker for 4 and 5. So that's how razor thin it is for those guys. How do you kind of mind your P's and Q's? Do you try to play a team strategy in Phoenix with all of those other cars fighting, or do you kind of just head right to Homestead and start practicing there now?
Yeah, I really have no care for Phoenix now, I'm not gonna lie. It's all focus on Homestead. The only reason I practice for Phoenix is maybe to help Skylar, because Andrew only being 1 point behind, and he's usually the guy to beat for the win, and Dylan as well, them being tied, he's gonna have to outrace both of them, and Skylar's really good. Skylar's definitely one of the more skilled drivers I've ever known, and he shows up in clutch situations. I've seen it before, and hopefully he can pull one out of the bag, just like he did at Kansas. I really believe he's got a good shot at making it. I know he likes Phoenix. He ran well there in the spring, so he's got to race his way in. I don't think I'll have to play team orders and stuff like that. I think he can do it on his own.
We look forward to seeing what ISM will have for us. And, of course, we've been excited for the championship race for quite some time, and I think you are as well. As you join Rhett McBride on the Championship 4 grid, you will fight for the Full Throttle Cup in 2 weeks' time. But as the race winner tonight from Texas, who do you want to say hi to?
I want to say hi to Skylar Shackelford, obviously, Brian Chambliss, who had a great run. He got fortunate with the yellow, but that's all in racing. Get another top 5 for him. He's been coming on strong at the end of these races. Jeremy Miller, he couldn't make it. He was too busy watching the New York Giants lose. Although I'm a Giants fan myself, I can't talk. Matthew Close, helping with the strategy, the spotting, all that. Zachary Carr paints my cars. Speaking of painting my cars, he painted the beautiful Speedway Chevy that you always see. Berlin Raceway, Hammer Bowling, Menards, everyone who's on the car. Shout out to all of them, and I couldn't be more pumped. I couldn't be more relieved. We're on the Homestead, baby. Woo!
The race winner tonight at Texas Motor Speedway. Connor, thanks for being in the series. Thanks for giving us your time post-race. Again, congratulations. We'll see you next week, but most importantly, we'll catch you down in Florida.
Yeah, we'll see you there, man.
The winner tonight at Texas, the walk-off from 8th now to 2nd in the round of 8 as he advances on to the championship. Connor Horde will fight for a title in 2019. Andrew Friedage comes home second position tonight. Just not good enough on that final run late. Got to P2 at the last second. Just didn't have the time to try to chase down the 24. It's still a good points night for the driver of the 88 machine, who leaves this evening in a transfer spot courtesy of a tiebreaker.
Yes, indeed. I was just about to get to that point here with Andrew, tied up actually with his own teammate in Dylan Jones. Andrew, how do you feel about the second place finish in what was a wild race where you showed some muscle throughout the night?
Yeah, just real quick, I'm on a new mic if I sound different for everyone. But I can't say I'm a little disappointed. I definitely think we had a better car than we were showing, but maybe not, because once we got back in the pack, it was kind of like everybody else. You just couldn't go anywhere. And, that last run, I knew I really didn't have a shot to get Connor. He was very, very fast, and the draft was a big deal. Clean air is a big deal. And once I got back there, I was giving it all I had and really couldn't even go anywhere. I'm shocked and lucky I got second there. I know Brian messed up those last 2 corners, so disappointed coming out of here, especially after last week, but I'm grateful just to race after the mistake I made last week. I'm just happy they even let me come out and race tonight.
First thing, you sound the best you've sounded all season, I have to admit, with the new mic, so it is very good. Second thing, though, I was about to ask about that strategy to try and stretch it longer, have the freshest tires out of the top 5. What came down to that strategy in decision, and how confident were you in that strategy potentially working out? Because before that caution, you were closing the gap by 3 to 4 tenths a lap.
Yeah, from what I saw at Kansas, I did the same thing, and we were able to close in pretty good. So I was confident with it, but once I started getting going, we were down to 14 to go, and it was 4 seconds. I think when I came off pit road, it was 8 seconds. So it would have been close. I don't know if we could have got by them, and you had all the people saving gas. They could have made it. So I really wish it went green, see how it ended up. I mean, we probably got the same spot we were going to get if it did, but I think that would have gave us a better chance. And like I said, I mean, once we got behind Daniel and Connor, I just couldn't go anywhere. It was like I don't know if the track changed or rubber laid down or it's just the dirty air. It was like a different car. So I did what I could. I ran up to the back of Daniel and Connor there and just couldn't go anywhere. So I had to try something, and that was to go a little bit longer. And that's pretty much what we did there on the strategy.
Next race is at ISM Raceway. Your thoughts about that racetrack as we go back to the short tracks for the final time in 2019?
Yeah, we won the last 2 races there. Last year we went in there and what I considered a must-win, and we won. Obviously this year we won, but I just did some practice laps, and it's not really the setup that I like. It really feels like it lugs off the corner, and I think it's going to be extremely hard to pass. Obviously, Connor just got his way in. Rick got in last week. You know, one person's going to get him points, and I guess we're fighting for that. You know, we really can't count on a win, especially how the setup is. So I'm optimistically excited, I'd say, but I really am nervous because that race could come down to late race pit stops, who take tires, or I think track position is going to be key.
One final second to last final question, I should rather say. We talked about a bit the playoff points. You're currently tied with your own teammate with Dylan Jones, and now one of your teammates in Eric Stanford is 12 points back. What's kind of the environment like amongst your fellow Aegis drivers now, as it could potentially come down to you, Jones, and Stanford amongst your team members to try and fight for essentially 2 of the last spots from the Final 4?
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to go. We're like a family over there. We've always said that, and we really just want to get at least one of us in there. You know, obviously we give each other extra room, maybe let one of us by pretty easy, but I don't think that's going to be the case. And, you know, we kind of have to go in that expecting that. You know, there's no hard feelings. We're going for a place in the Final 4, and, you know, it's been a good year for us collectively. I know Dylan's won, Eric won, I've won a few, so, you know, we're just going to go into it with the attitude of let's try to at least get one of us in and see where everybody ends up.
Before we let you go, is there anyone you want to thank for being a part of your second place finish tonight?
Yeah, I want to thank you guys for broadcasting, Brian for doing all the admin, all the fans for watching. I hope we put on a good show. Everybody back in my team, Dylan Jones, Daniel Everhart, Kyle Kamer, Sean Kalis, Shane Pears, Dave Washington for bringing me on the team. I wouldn't be here without him. Just everybody over there. Steve, I know I'm probably forgetting everybody else, but Eric putting the paint scheme on. It looks good every week, and all the drivers in this league had a lot of fun. You know, we were clean racing most of the night, so that was a really good time.
Congratulations on the top 5 finish this evening, Andrew. We'll see how you do at ISM Raceway. It should be a thriller.
Hey, thanks so much.
Andrew Feenash taking second place tonight. Back over to you, Evan.
We'll continue down the running order here. Down on the pit lane stood by with the driver of the number 45 machine, Brian Chambliss, coming home in third tonight from Texas Motor Speedway. Brian, congratulations on a P3, but it was almost a win with that strategy to stay out. You caught the yellow, just couldn't quite keep up with the 24 there off for the restart. Just talk us through your night.
Yeah, I knew I didn't have the speed to win early on in the race. So when we came to that last caution, there I was like looking at the fuel, and I knew it was close. So I decided to pit with coming to want to go there, and it gave me a shot to at least try to save the fuel. I thought it was going to be a good. I thought probably with that strategy I was going to end up definitely in top 5, and if a caution came out, it was going to be even better because then it was going to almost assure that I was going to get a top 5 at least or a podium. But yeah, that last restart just couldn't hold them off.
Of course, you know, these opportunities come and go kind of in the blink of an eye. And for this race, of course, trying to play a spoiler, trying to get up there and to mix it up with the likes of Connor Horn and Andrew Frenage is a pretty good abode for yourself late in this 2019 campaign. I know that we still have an intermediate track to go at Homestead, not really comparable to any of the other ones, but for the outlook going to ISM, where again there's going to be a lot of stressed out people trying to points or win their way deeper into the postseason, and you have another very good opportunity to kind of mess them all up. So what's the objective headed to Phoenix next week?
Well, I mean, obviously, get a good finish out of there. ISM is about an average track for me. Homestead, I do not like this car there specifically. Homestead's a great track, but I don't think it does real well with this package. But hopefully, we come out of ISM looking good there. These last few races that I've been in the playoffs, and then unfortunately missing this round of 8. I mean, I've been up there running top 5, turned it up for the playoffs, and I'm just going to keep it up there, and we're gonna give it all we got.
We've been talking about you, but a couple of other drivers who have really been putting it to the cars who, at least earlier in the season, had looked untouchable and making them sweat, if not for a bid to challenge in the grand scheme of things at the end of 2019, certainly to make a statement for a possible 2020 campaign. Brian and even that 45 team have definitely cranked it up in this postseason. We'll let you get out of here and get to going. But 2 weeks left, though, in 2019, and a P3 tonight. Who do you want to say hi to?
Yeah, I just want to thank my teammates, Connor, Skyler, and Jeremy, who missed tonight. Thank odmp.org for being on the car. That's Officer Down Memorial page that honors fallen law enforcement members who have died in the line of duty. There's one new guy on my car today, and unfortunately we're up to 102 on the year, but that website offers you a chance to donate to each specific member's family, and it helps them with whatever expenses may come. So if you want to visit odmp.org and look at that, that'd be great. Other than that, just thank my wife, and thanks to you guys for putting this league on, and thank RSR and all the drivers for coming out and putting on a good show every week.
I'll tell you what, Brian, we're very happy to have you with us, competing on Monday nights. Again, congratulations on a P3 this evening, and we'll see if you can find something magic at Phoenix and continue to show these guys that it's not just them when you're talking about the battles up front.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate it.
That's your P3 finisher, Brian Chambliss. Big thanks, as always, to our top 3 who give us post-race time every single week: Connor Horn, Andrew Friedage, and Brian Chambliss. And Justin, let's talk unofficial points, because we referenced it there a couple of times, but here's the picture. So again, Rhett McBride, we knew he was in courtesy of a win last week. Connor Horn goes from the bottom to the top. He wins. He's also through. So 6 cars, 2 spots open. Skyler Shackelford is third. He is just 1 single point ahead of Andrew Friedage, who is 4th. They would be the other 2 drivers if it ended tonight, but it does not. Tied with Fridage's Dylan Jones, but courtesy of a tiebreaker, and that is Fridage's P2 tonight. He gets the ticket in. It would be, therefore, Jones -0. On the outside, looking into next week, Jason Jacoby, second winningest driver this series this year, is -8 points in P6. Eric Stanford is -12 in 7th, and Thomas George, with that wreck early in this one, -18 in position 8.
I think if you're Thomas George, you're absolutely sweating at this point, because I think if he didn't get in an incident, he's in a decent spot with points, because I think he had a top 5 race car tonight. This evening, though, that incident was a huge one, to say the very least. He's going to have an absolute heck of a battle to try and get a good points day, let alone trying to get the victory at Phoenix, because Andrew mentioned himself, he's won the past 2 times there. He's going to be good there. Stanford, he's usually decent on the short tracks. Dylan Jones, in my opinion, he's even better than Andrew on some of these short tracks. He might be somebody that breaks his way into victory lane. It's going to be an absolute dogfight, I think, at ISM Raceway. And it's the reason why Connor said tonight was a win now, because there's so much uncertainty when it comes to going to a short track, especially at Phoenix, where you have a hot racetrack, a track where you can get tight and plow into the wall off turn 2, and you have the chances of getting contact, depending on race lines, in that dog leg heading into turn number 3. It's going to be a wild one. It's going to be a very wild one. I don't know who's going to take this victory. It could be anybody in this field.
And referencing the conversation, talking with Andrew there when you did with the P2 finish, he mentioned that he's already won the ISM race earlier this year in March. That was his 3rd win in a row of a 3-week win streak that went to Atlanta, Vegas at ISM. And he says that he's not too sure, which, to be fair, we've heard Andrew Friedage say, I'm not really sure how I'm feeling for that race, and then he goes out and does work anyway. So I know that he is not banking on it being a win, but if I'm everybody else, I have to think of it like Freenage is a very good chance of winning. So you're fighting for, I know it's technically 2 spots for the 6 drivers, maybe even 1, and with Freenage tied with Jones against Shackelford, P3 sounds really nice. He's literally only 1 point above being P5 and out of this thing. So it is a razor-thin margin going to ISM. And because it is a short track, I guess, on a Cup Series schedule basis, you can get a little bit closer. I asked Connor Horn if he would play any sort of a team game to try to help Shackelford out, if that means trying strategies and working on setups or, driving styles and whatnot, try to make those last over the course of a run. I don't know. It'll be an interesting week leading up to that. All I can promise is everybody tuning in is not going to want to miss next Monday night.
Yeah, for those watching First Off Fixed Series, so you got to work your driving style to that particular setup. Some drivers, even like Connor Horn, actually was racing at this racetrack because of daylight savings time before heading to Texas. So they're starting early. That's one of the beauties of the series here, Evan, with the timing of the dates, is they get a full week of running official races or whatnot across the service to get used to a racetrack and the setup, and then show their skill sets in preparation for the week and taking it to this series to say, I've been able to do this during the week. This is how I can find my way to victory lane using what I learned here at this racetrack. And it's going to be interesting to see who comes up on top.
We look forward to seeing how Phoenix plays out in 1 week's time. Until then, though, that's it for us here tonight from Texas. Encourage you to stay up to date with all things LSR TV by going to our website, www.livesimracing.com. You can also stay up with us on social media. Give us a like at facebook.com/LSR TV official, and by following us on Twitter at LSR TV. Just announced this week that the RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series is returning for 2020. Registration info can be found at livesimracing.com. Just click on the RealSimRacing tab at the top of your screen. Also announced some more series coming to LSR TV and the network in a couple of weeks, so we hope that you join us for those as well. But for the entire team at LSR TV and for your broadcast team tonight, for myself, Evan Pasoko, for Justin Prince and Randy Cheneth, want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Connor Horn, who wins and joins the Championship 4. The playoffs continue next Monday night. That is November the 11th. It's a 9 Eastern start from Phoenix. That race and every race of the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health Playoffs, going to be found right here on your home for sim racing and the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from Texas, where it's Connor Horn on top.